Okay, it's time to have a look at how to price yourself. And this is actually more important than you may think. And I know a lot of people find it a bit difficult to price yourself. And I just see a lot of people underpricing themselves. And sometimes it can be a bit scary to price what you're actually worth. But we're here to fix that. We're going to have a look at some pricing points, how to price yourself, how to actually calculate how to price yourself, and also how to have a look at the market and find what others are pricing themselves and how we can replicate or steal some validation from your competitors. And pricing is a first order decision. It determines who you attract, how you sell, and also, very important, whether paid acquisition is possible. So, underpricing is actually the easiest way to never be able to create a real course business. And I speak from experience here because I actually tried, or we actually tried all different price points. Me and Peter even created a $9 a month course platform with over 15 courses. It's now 6 or 5 years ago. I think maybe 6 years ago. And you can even have a look here. We had we actually had 17 courses and over 100 videos. Yeah, oh, actually it was launched in 2021. So yeah, time is only 4 years ago. No, 5 years ago. But we only had 100 users. So that's $900 a month. And how can you live off $900 a month? You need salary. We needed to host the platform to actually invest back in the course platform. It just does make sense. And we had super high production quality. And yeah, we had Norwegian champions. We had Guinness Record Award holders and a lot of amazing people, but still, we weren't able to scale it because of the price and because we didn't actually sell a real transformation. We were selling more content, more information, and information is free everywhere. You can go on Google, you can go on YouTube, you can even use ChatGPT. People don't pay a lot of money for information, even though it's cheap because they can find it for free. And we also tried courses for $100, $200, $500, $1,000. And selling anything below the $2,000 mark is just not scalable, at least from a cold traffic perspective, at least from running paid ads. And since you're here, I'm assuming you want to run paid ads. And paid ads is the best way to create a predictable and scalable course business. Because in the end of the day, with paid ads, if you do it correctly, like we will show you how to do, we will see that if you put in $1, you get 5 back or you get 10 back. And then you have something scalable because then you can just put in more dollars and get even more back. And if we're trying to sell something for $500, the margins are too thin. It's very hard to scale. And again, you want to have a lot of profit. Profit is what matter here, not a lot of revenue and low profits, but yeah, you want profits. So high ticket actually lets you build a real business, not just a small extra side income. And that leads us back to the fundamentals. People buy a transformation, not the how, not the content. If you were able to take me from where I am to where I want to be in less time with less content, I'm all yours. If my washing lady is cleaning my house in 1 hour and has the same result if she was using 10 hours, I rather want the 1 hour. So it's not about the content and building a lot of stuff. It's how can you take me from where I am to where I want to be in the shortest amount of time in the easiest way possible. And just think about it when we think about price. Have you ever bought something for $10 that has changed your life? And yeah, so maybe some of you are thinking, yeah, my coffee, it's I need it to survive. But again, have you ever bought something truly life-changing for $10? I am willing to bet that you haven't. And the reason for this is because it's very hard to create something very cheap that's actually life changing. Let's take a coaching or course, for example. If I want to have the best coaching or course possible, I actually want to be in there. I want to put a lot of time into it. I want to support people. And how can I do that for $10? I will need to sell 100,000 people into my program. And how can I help 100,000 people through a life changing transformation? It's just not doable. So we rather want to focus on providing real value, changing lives for a higher ticket price than going on the volume side of things and rather charging for content. So again, we're focusing on medicine kind of problems there, real transformation. And then we need to charge what it's worth. And another great thing with high ticket is, as I briefly mentioned, that it creates margins. It lets you scale. It lets you run paid ads. It lets you have closers and a team, better onboarding, better support. And yeah, it just lets you create a real business. And for example, it's very realistic that acquiring a customer can cost $1,000, $2,000. It just all depends. But if it costs you $1,000 to acquire a customer and your program costs $1,000, it's zero profit. You don't really have a business. How can you pay yourself? How can you pay your team? But if that program costs $5,000, you actually have a 5x ROI. You're spending $1,000 to earn $5,000. That's amazing. Then you can just have your, then you can just spend more to get more. That's where you want to be. And yeah, it's just very hard to sell low ticket stuff. And when we talk about profit and margins, that's the real fun here. Because in the end of the day, you want to earn a lot of money, and earning a lot of money to yourself is actually earning profit, not revenue. There's so many people bragging about earning a lot of revenue, but it doesn't matter if you don't have profits. I actually saw Alex Hermosi video where someone had an e-com brand. I think they were earning $10 million a year, but they weren't able to pay their own salary. They have zero profits. And he was asking Alex Hermosi on help on how to sell his business. And Alex were like, you can't sell your business. You don't have any profits. You need to create something with profits. So focus on your other business where you actually have profit margins. But that just explains everything. So we want to focus on profits, and that's also why a course business is amazing. You can be selling for $100,000 a month, and you can have $80,000 in profits with a course if you do it correctly. And another great thing is that price filters buyers. You don't really want to help people spending their last bucks because, yeah, they don't have a lot of money. And if they're spending their last dollars to get your help, they're really in need of your thing to succeed. And if it doesn't succeed, yeah, then you have a case. So you don't want to focus on those people. You want to focus on real transformations for people that are able to afford it. And yeah, price also signals value. We have actually seen with offers we have worked with, people going from charging $3,000 to $5,000 and actually being able to sell more because people perceive the product as more valuable. And the success rate on the backside of the program is also a lot higher. Because if you're spending $5,000, then you really want that result and you're going all in. So it's just a plus. People spend more, you're able to sell more in some instances, maybe the same, maybe a little bit lower. It just all depends. But people are getting better results. And that leads on to how to price yourself correctly. And I like to have a look at it from two different lenses. We have lens A, which is the market. What are your competitors charging for a similar offer, for a similar product? Because that's free validations. If you have 5 competitors charging $5,000, it just means that people are willing to pay $5,000 already for something like what you're going to make. So that's free validation. And we're going over in the market research video, I'm going over how to actually do market research. And one way is actually using ChatGPT. But in that video, I will explain more, but I also wanted to do it manually and also have a look at if they're running paid ads and so on. But as you can see here, $5,000, $10,000, $5,000, $2,000, $9,000. So if this costs $9,000 and they're actually running paid ads and they're profitable, and is for a boot camp plus coaching and network and placement, if I have the same offer, I should then be also able to charge $9,000. And your job is actually to create something better, to be unique. But it tells you a lot because it says that people are willing to pay these prices for something similar. That also means that you can charge similar prices. So it's a very important thing to do is competitive research. And if there's no competitors, that's actually a big red flag. Because if there's a demand, there's almost every time a supply. So if the demand is there, there should be some kind of supply. Maybe it's a coaching offer, not a course, or maybe it's something similar, maybe it's a software. It can be many things, but if there's a big problem, there's usually a lot of solutions. So finding competitors is a very good thing. It's a green flag. And then we have lens B, which is looking at the value of the transformation. And this is an equation we have made and we've seen it work, and it gives you somewhat of an idea of how you can price yourself. And here we have a look at the 12-month outcome, the value of the 12-month outcome. And then also the likelihood of achievement. How likely is it that your client will actually achieve this result? Because that will also determine the price. If it's 100%, okay, then it's a no-brainer if it costs less than they will get. But it's never 100%. So we will have a look at that as well. But let's have a look at how to determine the 12-month value of the outcome. And this can be both monetary or non-monetary. And monetary just means that you have a look at either saving or earning money. And I think a good example here is if I help you earn $10,000 more a month. And say it takes some time to actually earn those $10,000, maybe you use 2 months, and let's just take $100,000 a year. That's the outcome I'm helping you with. If I'm helping you earn $100,000 more a year, that's worth $100,000, at least if you achieve it. But that brings us on to having a look at how likely is it that you will achieve it. So we will continue with this equation here when we have that. But this $10,000 a month for 10 months is then $100,000. And if you're able to help me earn it instantly, we can even times it by 12 and have it at $120,000. Okay, and then we have non-monetary examples. And that's a bit more tricky. And just to make it a bit more concrete here, let's say it's quitting an addiction. Then you want to have a look at what addiction and for who you're helping solve this addiction with, and also the severity of the addiction. So maybe it's an alcohol addiction for a CEO earning $2 million a year. Then it's easier to determine the value of the outcome. And for an alcohol addiction, it can even be priceless. But of course, you need a price. But let's say it's for losing weight, and let's say it's for someone that's at 40% body fat, and they want to get to 15%. And this is, again, I will target people with money. It can be someone with a full-time job. It can be, again, CEO, or let's say someone earning salary of five. Oh, now I just converted Norwegian kroners, but it's easier to have in dollars. 50K a year. And because of this weight, they're not confident, they're not able to live their life like they want, then it's worth a lot of money for them to fix it. And the same with your marriage. So just think about these things to determine the value of the outcome. And I will show you some non-monetary and also some monetary examples later, just to give you an idea. But here, doing competitive research is also very important. What are people already willing to spend to fix their problem? And yeah, as I talked a lot about, buyer determines value. It's very different helping a student from helping a junior employee, from helping a managing partner. The same problem and the same pain is worth something else to different kind of people. So take that into account. And then we have the likelihood of achievement. And this is very important because if the likelihood of achievement is low, let's say I told you that I will help you earn $1 million in the next 30 days. It sounds amazing, but you wouldn't be convinced unless I had some crazy way or proof of how I'm doing it. But the chance of you believing in that and actually buying into it is very low because the likelihood of achievement isn't there. So this is very important. And if you're at the early stages and you don't have a lot of proof, then you should charge yourself a bit lower. But if you have strong proof, or maybe even you have a guarantee, maybe you're guaranteeing me that I will earn $10,000 a month, which is a crazy guarantee. But then paying $10,000 for you helping me earn $120,000 is a no brainer. I would even be able to spend $30,000 if you can guarantee it to me. But that guarantee isn't realistic, so let's have a look at something more realistic. Let's say it's you have a lot of proof and you're actually helping a lot of people. Let's say 10%, $12,000. So if you have a lot of proof and if you're helping people earn $10,000 a month, charging $12,000 for helping people earn $120,000 is fair. But if you don't have a lot of proof, you may need to go down to $6,000. So you need to think about how likely is it that they will actually achieve it. And you also need to think from your clients or potential clients' mind. How are they perceiving the likelihood of achievement? And proof includes your own result, client outcomes or testimonials, your mechanism, and your guarantee. And pricing power increases as belief increase. And if you're just starting out, again, you will charge yourself lower. Some general starting bands and to give some ideas to where to start. I also want you to have a look at your competitors and have a look at the equation here. But just to give you some ideas, within health, it could be starting from $2,900 towards $3,900, and then with proof, you scale the price. For relationship, starting around 2,900, this is common, and high stakes, which is divorce, custody, and so on, bigger pain, you can charge more. And for wealth. And again, if you're starting from absolutely zero, start lower. And you shouldn't start with paid ads if you're starting from zero. Build proof, build experience, build your skills. And then you can charge more and more. And then we can eventually turn that into running paid ads and creating something really scalable. And guarantees can be a very strong way to sell your offer. And yeah, even in marketing and also in the sales department. And you have two core types, which is unconditional and conditional. Unconditional could be a 14-day, no question asked satisfaction guarantee. So they can actually get refunded, get their money back within 14 days, or maybe it's 30 days. But something that is more common is to have a conditional guarantee. And here it's tied to specific actions and also specific outcomes. And it could be if you complete the program and don't get X, and let's use an example here. If you complete the program and haven't gotten 5 new clients by the end of the 4-month period, we will work with you until you do, and we'll work with you for free. This is more common, and then you also add some conditions to the guarantee and some terms. And yeah, of course, the claims must match what you can prove. And in a saturated market, guarantees could be very important in your marketing and when you're selling. And in a saturated market, you often either need a really badass guarantee or a really unique and badass mechanism. And preferably, you have both. And then, when and how do you raise price? Because, as I mentioned here, maybe you're starting here, but if you want to end up here, how do you actually increase price? And that's a good question. So when you raise your price, these needs to be true first. You need to have a day one cash collection above 50%, meaning that you're getting 50% on average or above 50% actually in cash. So if you have payment plans and everybody is signed up for a payment plan that's 12-month long or something like that, then you shouldn't increase price. But if you have an $8,000 program, people are on average paying you above $4,000 upfront, then you can actually have a look at raising your price. And also, payment plan collection should be above 80%, meaning that on average, you collect at least 80% of the money when people are on payment plans and so on. And then close rate should be above 20% if you have an external salesperson. But if you're selling yourself as the founder, it should be above 30%, or at least 25 to 30%. And the increments typically look like this. Most normal is to increase by $1,000 at a time. If you want the slower approach, you can try $500. And if you see that, okay, you're collecting 100% and your closing rate is 40%, okay, maybe you can increase price by $2,000 even. And you should test the new price on 20 to 30 qualified calls before rolling it out to your whole sales team or actually implementing the price as. And then also how to diagnose before blaming the price. For example, if the show rate is low, it's not actually the price fault. That's actually more of a scheduling issue and lead quality. If people say, I need to think more about it, it can be clarifying the promise and also showing proof. If everyone says yes, and this goes back to your closing rate, price is probably too low. If everyone says no, you also need to have a look at the avatar, the promise, and also the belief and how good you are at closing. But it can also be the price. But if you're pricing yourself at $2,000, it's not the price. It's the transformation, the avatar, the promise, and your proof. So fix fundamentals before touching the number. And that's it for today's video. And yeah, I'm excited for the next one. See you then.